Have you ever wondered why the more we talk, the smaller we feel every time we voice our sadness, struggles, or vulnerability? The mind quietly takes notes, imprinting every word, then gently nods. Yes, this is all your life amounts to. And just like that, we unknowingly confine ourselves to a faded copy and continue complaining like an old radio station. Today, it's time to hit the off button, because every word we utter might be unconsciously reinforcing the life we never wanted. Don't get me wrong, this video does not encourage suppressing emotions or shutting down all sincere conversations. Our goal is much simpler. Don't hand over the key to your power to anyone just through complaints. The Stoics once said, "He who masters his words holds his destiny." They saw silence as the symbol of pure strength. That's why I'm about to share 13 lessons from Stoicism to help you know when to stay silent and when to speak. Once applied, you will stop speaking from wounds and start living from strength, shedding the victim's robe once and for all. Before we dive in, let's listen to Isabel's story. Don't expect the typical struggle then breakthrough arc, because the beginning is far from inspiring. But don't look away just yet, as the twist to come will stay with you. Isabel, 34 years old, had a special talent, talking non-stop about everything happening around her, from fights with her boyfriend, grocery lists, to moments when she felt the whole world was crashing down, everything spilled out unfiltered. Anything that hurt her was immediately spoken aloud, as if speaking could make the problem disappear. At first, it seemed to work. Friends listened. Social media flooded with posts like "I can't take it anymore," or "everything happens for a reason." Online communities responded with hearts, flames, and hundreds of encouraging comments. Isabel believed she was being authentic, processing emotions. In reality, she was stuck. Like a spider spinning its web, she wove a net of words around herself. The more she struggled, the tighter the web became. One day, Clara, her best friend, looked her straight in the eyes and said something more painful than any breakup. "Isa, I hate to say this, but it seems like you enjoy suffering. You talk so much about your problems that I can't tell if you want to get out or stay in them forever." Silence. The words dropped like a pebble hitting the bottom of a well. That night, Isabel lay alone, lights off, phone on airplane mode. In the quiet darkness, she suddenly remembered a quote she'd once read but never truly grasped. "The more we talk about a wound, the harder it is to heal." The next day, there were no more tearful status updates. In group chats, Isabel stopped being the light-speed responder. Friends grew curious. Is something wrong? Actually, everything was just beginning. For the first time, Isabel allowed herself to feel without broadcasting, to heal without mapping out emotional graphs. She moved through the pain without feeding it with words. Something strange then bloomed. An acquaintance gifted her Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. Isabel had never touched philosophy before, but the book's simple, sturdy cover was mesmerizing. She flipped through the pages. Each word felt like a cool drop of water falling on the cracked soil of her heart. Marcus wrote, "What is not human cannot harm us." He reminded, "Life is short. Don't waste it on things beyond your control. Isabel suddenly understood. All this time, through her own words, she had handed the control of her emotions to an audience, to those virtual hearts and flames. Online. Sound familiar? How often have we been like Isabel, taking instant empathy as pain relief, forgetting that the side effect is dependency? Every complaint doesn't solve the issue, it merely wraps it in a damp cloth, making the wound slower to heal. The Stoics taught us to be silent, not to suppress emotions, but to restore inner strength. They saw words as arrows. Once released from the bow, they cannot be taken back. That's why, before shooting, you must aim carefully. Think about it. In a meeting, isn't it often the person who speaks less, but with precision, who is most listened to? They don't need volume to convey weight. Recall the last time you were with someone who vented non-stop. You walked away feeling mentally exhausted, didn't you? Now think about the last time you were the one complaining. In that moment, your inner strength slipped away like sand through your fingers. So let's begin with the first Stoic lesson. Ask a question before speaking. Will these words help me solve the problem? If the answer is no, stay silent. Then comes the second lesson. Recognize emotions like drifting clouds. Instead of immediately condemning them, observe them. Only after long enough observation can you know whether that cloud truly needs a rainstorm of words, or will simply drift away with the wind. I'll decode the remaining lessons one by one, but for now, take a moment to feel the weight of that first silence. What did Isabel do? She took on the 24-hour no complaining challenge. It was incredibly hard. Her throat felt like it was about to burst, her fingers itching to type. But each time the urge surfaced, she took a deep breath and wrote her feelings in a notebook instead of on social media. The whispered words on paper didn't need likes. Gradually, she found herself less dependent on feedback. After a week, she asked herself, why did I need to speak so loudly before? That question was the key. In silence, Isabel heard her own heartbeat. She started jogging, no need to post a story. She texted Clara, I think you know, bold or italics needed. From someone who lived loudly, Isabel transformed into someone who filters her words. When she spoke again, each word carried weight, even if light as silk. Her friends felt the shift. Her presence now quiet but steady, like a calm lake veiled in early mist. Now imagine if Isabel had continued her old ways. What would her life have looked like? That story reflects back at us. No one stops you from speaking of your pain. But remember, endless venting only traps you in a closed shell. The Stoics understood silence not as emptiness, but as compressed energy. Sometimes, power shows itself most clearly when we say nothing. That brings us back to a core lesson. You have every right to share, but share from the scar, not the bleeding wound. When a scar stands for a lesson learned, your words become useful, like a guiding torch, not just a constant cry for help. In this moment, you might be wondering, can I apply this right away? The answer is yes, starting with attention to the pause. Before every sentence, try pausing for 2 beats, allowing your mind to reflect. What is the purpose of this statement? That pause is small but magical. It separates instinctive reaction from conscious action. Your brain is like a diligent secretary. It records and stamps every word you say about yourself. If you keep repeating phrases like "I'm weak," "I'm unlucky," "I can't," it will eventually file that under-truth. So why not keep that secretary busy filing affirmations of strength? As Isabel began to change, someone asked, "How did you do it?" She smiled. "I started with one silent day." Sounds simple, but within simplicity lies mastery. To become a master of words, first become a master of silence. You see, this journey is not steeped in magic. It begins with awareness, travels through discipline, and ends in freedom. And that freedom is the ability to choose to speak or not to speak. I believe that if you commit to short periods of silence, little by little, you will feel yourself grow quietly, not because of applause, but because, for the first time, you hear your inner voice no longer drowned in noise. Isabel's story paused at Marcus Aurelius's book, but the real journey was just beginning. She now held the Stoic map in her hands, and each page served as a guide to building an unshakable inner fortress. Are you curious what those 13 lessons truly look like? Together, we'll unfold each page, dissecting the Stoic strategies for learning to be silent, to speak at the right moment, and to rise above the victim role. Do you remember that moment when Isabel closed the book and looked into the silence? Not with fear for the first time, but with a sense of opportunity? That was the turning point, and today, the story continues from the very page she had underlined to the corner. Isabel began circling phrases in red, as if Marcus Aurelius had written them just for her. Speak little and only when necessary. Choose not to be hurt, because what you hear, see, and say will shape who you are. She paused. For years, she had trapped herself in a loop of complaining, a mindset revolving around the role of a victim, one bound by no one but herself. The hardest truth to swallow is this: no one forced Isabel to keep repeating that broken story. Every day, with her stream of words, she had been meticulously reinforcing the weaker version of herself. She thought she was healing, but in truth, she was just replaying an old recording. So she tried the opposite: silence. Not the painful kind that brings tears to the surface, but a deliberate, intentional silence. Every time she felt the urge to spill out her sorrow, she took a deep breath and asked herself, "Am I saying this to seek rescue or to be praised?" The answer was often unclear, but it was exactly that uncertainty that freed her from her old patterns. From then on, Isabel's conversations changed completely. When she spoke, her words had a clear purpose. She no longer felt the need to narrate every messy corner of her life. And something magical happened. People listened, really listened, because what came out was no longer noise. Ironically, her problems didn't vanish. They were still there, but they no longer sat at the center of her universe. Isabel stopped lamenting. She started rebuilding. If there was one thing that truly changed her life, it wasn't just the silence itself, but the space that silence opened up for her to access power long dormant. She stopped writing the victim script and began directing her own story. Even if no one had yet named it Stoicism, Isabel came to understand a simple truth. It's not always about speaking more, but about respecting the strength in stillness. Because when you stop repeating what hurts you, you begin to build what can heal you. And that is exactly the adventure you're about to begin. Today, you will live from your inner strength instead of from your wounds. If you find these insights helpful, consider subscribing and becoming a member for deeper content. And in the comments, tell me, are you ready to stop retelling every hardship in your life? Or simply type, starting today, I am a Stoic. Treat that as a personal commitment. Because every time you speak of yourself in a diminished way, the world takes note. Listen closely the next time you say, I'm so overwhelmed, or I can't do anything right. You're sending a dual signal. First, to yourself. Second, to the person across from you. Your words are like a loudspeaker that amplifies identity. The more often you broadcast it, the more it becomes reality. Not because it's true, but because you turn it into the only frame. Imagine meeting someone new. The coffee is still steaming, the conversation just warming up. But within a few minutes, they've already told you 3 times that they're hopeless in love. They make terrible decisions, and they never finish anything, even if they laugh while saying it. Your brain immediately files a record. This person is unstable, and even if it's unconscious, you begin to treat them through that lens. Similarly, when you label yourself as weak, the crowd around you will begin interacting with you through that label. That is why Stoicism emphasizes speak less, live more, and choose your words carefully. Because each sentence is a brick that builds your image in the eyes of the world. Remember that moment when Isabel gently set her pen down and realized that silence could open a door to inner strength. It was at that turning point she understood. Words do not merely tell stories, they lay the bricks that construct a person. Now we continue the journey, diving deeper into that small but mighty power, your own language. Isabel soon saw a harsh truth every time she blurted out, I'm so useless, or I was born unlucky. She was quietly teaching the world how to treat her. Worse yet, she was training her own brain to treat its owner poorly. Words are not snapshots of the present moment. They are bricks. Each negative phrase thrown out is another brick added to the mental prison wall. Once that wall is complete, you'll be gasping for air and wondering why. The Stoics knew this secret over 2,000 years ago. To them, language was not decoration, nor a tool for self-pity. It was a weapon of strength. Epictetus once said something that cut straight to the core. If someone speaks ill of you, and it is true, correct yourself. If it is false, laugh. So concise. But today we ask an even sharper question. What happens when the person speaking ill of you is you? The Stoics advised choosing words carefully, especially when speaking about oneself. You might think speaking well of yourself is just empty affirmation, but in truth, it is the most direct path to shaping the person you aspire to become. They weren't fans of idle talk, but when they spoke, their words hit the mark. They viewed silence as discipline, and words as a sharp blade to carve the mind. None of them used language to reinforce weakness. They used it to remind themselves to stand stronger along that journey. They engraved into their hearts the idea that whoever controls their words controls their thoughts. This is not just ancient philosophy. Modern science confirms it again and again. Psychologist Mark Leary noted, self-compassion is the antidote to self-cruelty. And the root of that cruelty, more often than not, begins in the language you use with yourself. In other words, you don't need an enemy to take you down if you've already turned your own words into a whip. Against your back. An even clearer illustration comes from a Stanford University study. People who describe themselves in positive terms consistently demonstrate greater resilience and motivation. They aren't naturally lucky. They reprogram their brains through the words they choose. Their language is like the rudder of a ship, small, quiet, but steering the entire voyage. If you keep muttering, "I'm broken, there's no way out," then your ship will endlessly circle in a muddy puddle. Change the rudder, change the course. So how do you apply this fully? First, rewrite the script. When you catch yourself saying something negative, immediately reframe it. Instead of "I'm a mess," say "I make mistakes sometimes and I'm learning." That sentence doesn't dodge the problem, but it breathes progress into it. Second, stop using humor to put yourself down. You are not clumsy, not forever single, and not someone who finishes nothing. Sure, those jokes might get a few laughs, but at what cost? They drain your internal energy reserves. Third, speak up when someone tries to stick an old label on you. If someone says, "You're always like that," calmly reply, "That was before, now I've come much further." Let them hear it. More importantly, let your own ears hear it. This is not about sounding nice. It's about being consciously responsible with yourself. If you don't pick up the pen and revise your story, you'll stay trapped in a role that's long outdated. And deep down, you know that's not the lead role you're meant to play. Picture a first-time meeting. The person across from you pours tea, and within 5 minutes, they've already said 3 times, "I'm hopeless at relationships. I make terrible decisions. I never finish anything." Even though they smile while saying it, your brain immediately stamps a label. You're not doing it on purpose, but you begin to see them through the lens of failure. This mechanism works both ways. When you constantly beat yourself up, people around you also default to seeing you through that same lens. The key point here is not to deny hardship. The Stoics never advised painting reality in rosy colors. They encouraged us to look directly at adversity, but not to sprinkle salt on open wounds with cruel words. They used language as a flashlight to light the way, not as chains to hold themselves down. Try a small exercise tonight. Write down 3 negative things you often say about yourself. Then next to each, rewrite a positive but honest version. For example, "I procrastinate a lot" becomes "I'm learning how to prioritize better." Place that paper somewhere visible, so your brain receives that new message daily. Also, be cautious with public self-mockery. A tweet joking "I'm such a disaster" might earn a few likes, but the cost is your self-respect leaking away drop by drop. Social media won't be there to help you clean up the mental mess left by distorted beliefs. And remember, when you change how you talk about yourself, the gray cloud in your mind will try to fight back. The brain loves old habits and the familiar. is easier than change, but you're already familiar with the power of disciplined silence. Use the pause. Breathe deeply. Remind yourself, I choose words I deserve to hear. Do this 100 times, and by the 101st, the new language will flow as naturally as breath. There's also a subtle but powerful trick. Match affirmations to context. Saying I'm amazing in front of the mirror might feel empty. If you don't believe it, instead, tie positive words to specific actions. After finishing a tough assignment, whisper, I really stuck with that. The brain will connect the evidence and begin revising its belief model. At this point, you may wonder, can something as small as changing a few words really make a lasting difference? Remember the ship's rudder. It's not as large as the sail, not as heavy as the anchor, but it changes the course of the whole vessel. Language, in size, is just a chain of fleeting sounds. Yet it turns the axis of consciousness, which reshapes behavior, which ultimately shapes destiny. So here we go. The final part of this page is a 7-day challenge. 7 days without putting yourself down in front of others, and without whispering self-disrespect in your mind. When a negative thought sparks, rewrite the script. When someone brings up the old version of you, calmly affirm that you've moved on. See language as a sharp sword used to cut ties, not to wound yourself. Let me share a secret most people today have forgotten. Not everything you do needs to be shared. You don't need to post photos from every trip. Record yourself walking out of the dentist to prove you're fine. Or write a deep status about what you learned from your morning jog. It sounds strange, doesn't it? In a world where every moment can and seemingly must end up online, choosing not to share can be the boldest move of all. The truth is, so many things today are no longer done to live, but to have something to post. But listen to me, not everyone deserves access to your process, and not every change needs an audience. Sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is to evolve in silence. You know why? Because when you talk too much about what you're doing, you risk turning change into performance instead of transformation. It becomes something you say to impress others, not something you deeply feel. And that's where many people get stuck. Talking about the plan, talking about the journey, posting, narrating, but never truly moving forward. Imagine this. You decide to change yourself. Wake up earlier, exercise, eat healthier, start reading every night. But you don't tell anyone. No stories, no posts, no dinner updates. You just do it. And then, one day, someone looks at you and says, you look different. What have you been doing? That's a completely different kind of joy. Not because you got attention, but because you changed for yourself so deeply that the transformation speaks for itself. No shouting, no proving. That's when you realize true transformation doesn't need a megaphone. It resonates on its own. It shows up like a silent sunrise, stunning in its quiet. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus once distilled an entire way of living into a single line. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Exactly. Don't justify why you are changing. Don't explain every step you're taking. Just do it. Do it quietly, calmly, without needing a pat on the back. The best proof of your transformation is not what you tell every person you meet. It's what they feel through how you live, the choices you make, and the alignment between your words and your actions. No theatrics, no showmanship, just consistency and self-respect. Because true transformation is an internal decision, not an external event. What's outside likes, comments, approval only serves as distraction. Only what's inside truly transforms you. And if anyone in the modern world fully embodied this spirit, it was Jose Pepe Mujica, the former president of Uruguay. After nearly 15 years in prison under brutal isolation, he walked out without bitterness, without blame, without revenge. No shouting, no memoirs, no media campaign to inspire. He simply lived the way he believed was right, simple, consistent. He refused privileges, lived in a humble farmhouse, drove an old car, and donated most of his salary. He never needed to convince anyone he had changed. His life spoke for him. And that is a lesson you can carry. You don't need to share your journey to make it meaningful. You don't need to narrate every scar, every failure, every small step forward. In fact, the quieter your path, the more powerful it becomes, because silence removes distraction. And when distraction fades, only pure action remains. Yes, I know, at first, it's hard. We want to share. We crave recognition. We want to prove, I'm doing well, look at me. But the more we share, the more fragile the journey becomes. The easier it is to be swayed, to get distracted, to forget the root reason we started. And you know, what's magical about staying silent yet steady? You, in the end, will feel the transformation more deeply than any compliment from others. No. One needs to see you feeling it is enough. And that is real power. Next, we'll move into the first of the 13 lessons from Stoicism, where you'll learn how to distinguish between what's within your control and what should be released. This is the very first brick in building a new life, quiet, unflashy, but deeply unshakable. We just spoke about living in silence so your change can speak. But did you know, sometimes, just by talking too much about what you're building, you're draining the very energy meant to build it. So how do you apply this practically in everyday life? Simple. Start by keeping a few things to yourself. The new habits you're nurturing, the goals you've just begun to form, the quiet dreams that need time to grow. Protect your journey from the noise, not because you fear judgment, but because you respect the process. Sometimes, silence is the highest form of self-love. Also, ask yourself, do I want to share this because I'm genuinely excited, or am I seeking validation? There's a big difference between those two types of sharing. One person says, I feel really content with what I'm doing. Another says, I'm waking up early, working out every day, eating clean, meditating for 10 minutes, reading 20 pages, and I've started learning Spanish too. The first comes from peace. The second often comes from insecurity. And above all, get used to making progress without reporting it, living without explaining it. Because the energy you spend justifying your path to others could be used to continue building. And when you build in silence, what you create becomes stronger. Others don't need to know what you're doing. Eventually, they'll see, and even then, you don't need them to see it to know it's working. That's how real transformation is born, not in the center of noise, but in a quiet place, close to your own heart. Third, let your actions speak. Talking is easy. Anyone can say, "I'm going to change. I'll start today." This time, it's real. But only when action begins does the truth reveal itself. Words can promise the world, but only action defines who you are. You've likely met someone who always talks about what they're going to do. Tomorrow I'll wake up at 6. I'm about to quit social media. I'm launching a startup. This year I'll hit $1 million. And then the next morning, the alarm is snoozed, Instagram is still scrolling. The business idea? Well, the market's just tough. Once again, words are left behind. The disappointment repeats. At first, they might seem inspiring. But as time goes on and nothing changes, their words lose value. They become noise, just intentions with no action. You know that brings no real impact. You know what truly makes a difference? Quiet consistency. The kind of person who doesn't need to say much, but you see they're changing. One day, they behave differently, make different decisions, show up with new energy. No announcement, no caption, they just do it. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Perform every action in life as though it were your last." He didn't say promise well, he said act well. That's a clear reminder. We're not here to impress with words. We're here to build with action. The Stoics had no patience for empty talk. To them, speaking without doing is a form of self-deception. Epictetus once declared, "It is not words that make a man great, but deeds. Words without action are smoke." But true Stoics seek what is solid. Don't misunderstand. Silence isn't about fear. It's about not wasting energy explaining a process you haven't truly lived yet. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to rally people with your plans. Because a seed is meant to be planted in soil, not in a microphone. So starting today, do it differently. Let silence become the foundation of your actions. Let words become fewer and the weight of your steps become greater. No need to prove. No need to promote, just move forward. In the next part, we will officially begin the first of the 13 Stoic principles, how to clearly distinguish what is within your control and what is not. This is the root of breaking free from helplessness and cultivating inner steadiness. Remember how we said that action does not always need an explanation, and that silence can be the most powerful statement. To understand what that looks like in real life, let me tell you about a woman who turned silence into a symbol, Greta Garbo. At the height of her career, Greta Garbo was one of the greatest film stars in the world. Her face graced magazine covers everywhere, the image of cool beauty, magnetic allure, and timeless talent. Each day she received thousands of letters from admirers around the globe. The spotlight never stopped shining on her name. And then, one day, she vanished. No press conference, no farewell, no official announcement. She withdrew from the public eye completely, as if she had never existed. She offered no explanation, made no effort to quash rumors, and never justified her decision. It was that silence, not any spoken word, that became the most powerful statement of her career and her life. For decades afterward, she lived quietly, far from cameras and attention. Though countless people tried to discover why she left, she never broke her silence simply to satisfy curiosity. As time passed, her legacy did not fade. It grew more legendary. Her quiet retreat earned her even greater respect and turned her into an icon. What can you learn from Greta Garbo? You do not need to be famous to choose the powerful path of silence. Stop announcing every step before you take it. You do not need to say you have started working out, just go. You do not need to say you are building self-esteem, just begin, even if no one sees. Let the change be felt before it is told. You do not owe an explanation each time you behave differently. If you are calmer, if you no longer react as before, if you prefer solitude, there is nothing to negotiate. Evolution does not need a press release. If you feel the urge to prove you have changed, pause and ask yourself, am I doing this for me or for others? Do I want admiration or peace? Many people fail to grow not because they lack ability, but because they are too busy performing instead of transforming. Real growth needs no applause. It needs consistency. Work in silence. Speak less. Do more. Share less. Build more. If someone asks, "Why are you quieter these days?" simply smile. You know your life is no longer composed of speeches. It is built from choices. Words can fade, actions endure. Strangely enough, when you stop talking so much and start acting quietly, the world listens without you saying a word. Now we arrive at a critical point. Change the story you tell yourself, and you will change your life. The story you repeat in your mind, even when unspoken, is more powerful than any words that leave your mouth. That inner voice never rests. It is there when you wake, when you fail, when you decide, when you look in the mirror. What it repeats day after day eventually becomes the identity you believe and then live out. The greatest danger is that you may not notice. You are retelling a limiting story. It is not "I think" negatively for a moment, but I think negatively whenever anything happens. You react with automatic phrases. Yes, it is happening to me again. Bad luck always finds me. I am not good enough. No one forces you to say these things. No one puts those sentences in your head. You allow them to become reflexes, and each repetition strengthens an outdated self that may no longer serve you, yet still steers you like a shadow. Modern psychology calls this inner self-talk. Kristin Neff, one of the leading researchers on self-compassion, shows that the way you speak to yourself directly affects self-esteem, resilience after failure, clarity in decision-making, and no. It is not about hollow slogans like "I am sunshine." It is simply this: stop attacking yourself by reflex. Ask yourself this: what do you say to yourself when you make a mistake? Do you comfort yourself? Or do you beat yourself up? Do you blame yourself, scold yourself? Or do you pause, take a breath, and say, "It's okay. What can I learn from this?" The story you repeat every day is the programming language of your subconscious, and you can rewrite it. No noise needed. No need to share it. just a choice every time you face difficulty. What do I say to myself now? Have you ever wondered, am I on my own side? Or am I abandoning myself? There are times when the best decision you can make is not to speak, but to stay silent with yourself. Silent toward the toxic thoughts. Silent toward the inner whisper that exists only to harm you. Because not every thought that passes through your mind deserves to be spoken. Not everything you think should be turned into a truth reinforced by language. If you know it will hurt, you pause. Set a boundary with the voices inside your own head. Sometimes, silence is the deepest form of self-care. It gives you a moment to breathe, to reflect, to ask, why did that negative thought show up? Do I really deserve to be treated that way? Even by myself? Imagine your mind as a notebook. Every day, you are writing in it, line by line. I'm not good enough. I'll mess this up. This is too hard for me. If that's what you write again and again, then that's also what you read again and again. And if you read it daily, what kind of story are you creating? What kind of person are you becoming now? Imagine changing just a few lines. If you write, I'm learning, I'm improving, I deserve this new opportunity, what might happen? You are rewriting yourself. The Stoics did not speak much, but they spoke with timing and purpose. Epictetus once said, "It's not events that disturb people, but their judgment about those events. And the judgments you place on yourself can either be your Achilles heel or your wings." Marcus Aurelius also said, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." It may sound like a lovely piece of philosophy, but it is actually an internal compass. It shows you how deeply thoughts matter, and how you speak to yourself matters even more than what you say to the outside world. When you begin to challenge the beliefs that limit you, when you begin to speak to yourself as you would to someone you love, something remarkable happens. It's not magic. It's awareness. It's self-respect. It's daily practice. Start with the smallest thing. Notice the phrases you say without thinking. When a negative line pops up, don't let it pass. Pause, respond, reframe, replace. You don't need to say it out loud. No mirror speeches required. Just whisper it in your mind, as though you are adjusting the rudder of a massive ship. No one else sees it, but you know it's changing direction. Instead of "I can't handle this," try "I'm still learning how to deal with this." Instead of "I always fail," try "I'm getting better with each misstep." It may sound small, but you are rewriting the entire script inside you. Do it like a Stoic. No drama, no noise, just quiet, steady effort. And if someone asks, "Why don't you complain like you used to? Why do you seem calmer now?" just smile. That's a sign you're on the right path. You don't need to explain. It will show itself. Yes, the words you repeat inside will become the things you express outside. And when you change the story you tell yourself, you change the person you are allowing yourself to become. Once upon a time, a group of frogs was hopping through the forest. Two of them accidentally fell into a very deep hole. The others gathered around the rim and looked down. After a few seconds of panic, they began to shout, "Stop trying. You will never get out. It is too high. you will exhaust yourselves and get hurt. Hearing this, one of the two frogs gave up. It lay down, drained, and died. But the other frog kept going. Each time it heard you cannot do it, it jumped. Higher chose a new angle, found a fresh foothold. No stopping, no complaining, no quitting. At last it leaped out of the hole. Why? Because that frog was deaf. It could not hear the negative words. It thought everyone was cheering for it, and that saved its life. The story is simple yet profound. Words can be poison or life-saving medicine. So what are you listening to? What are you repeating? Is your inner voice a cheerleader or a critic? Amazed, the other frogs crowded around and asked, "How did you manage that?" The hole was so deep and everything seemed impossible. The frog just smiled and said, "I am deaf. I thought you were encouraging me." That seemingly simple tale holds a powerful truth. The words we hear, and even more, the words we say to ourselves, can redeem us or destroy us. For the deaf frog, those words became fuel. For the other, they were a death sentence. Epictetus spoke clearly about the role of language in the inner life. First, understand the meaning of what you are about to say, then speak. Yes, a profound lesson for us all. Do not use words as noise. Use them as direction. Because every time you open your mouth, you are drawing a map to somewhere. The question is, does that place lift you up or pull you down? The Stoics understood this deeply. They practiced precise speech not because they feared mistakes, but because they respected the power of language. They knew that speaking without awareness is like shooting arrows without aiming. You might hurt yourself, hurt others, or simply waste precious energy. For a Stoic, words are deeds. There is no gap between what they say and what they do. That consistency is the shield that protects their inner world. Today we live in a world flooded with words. We scatter them everywhere. Without thinking, we repeat them out of habit, often unconsciously. We pollute our own minds with phrases like, "What a disaster. I am not good at this. This world is such a mess." You think those lines are harmless. They are not. Every word creates a vibration, an emotional state, a direction. When you repeat them over and over, even in jest, they start to leave marks. Imagine words as drops of water falling on a stone. One drop changes nothing, but thousands of drops each day will wear down the hardest rock. That is what negative language is quietly doing to you. It erodes confidence, drains inner strength, and you do not notice. This does not mean you must become someone who speaks in flowery phrases all the time. No, it simply means do not speak carelessly. Tell the truth, but speak with purpose. Ask yourself, does this sentence bring clarity? Is it building something or just complaining? Does it help or merely vent anger? Remember, language affects not only you but others as well. Sometimes a single sentence from you may be the only thing someone hears on a bad day. You have a choice: lift them up or pull them down. A Stoic chooses words carefully because they know one sentence can open or close a door in someone's mind. So how do you begin? 1. Observe yourself. Listen to what you say to yourself and to others. Become aware of the phrases you repeat for no real reason. Many of them don't come from the present moment, but from old wounds, long-standing insecurities you've carried for years. Update your words to reflect who you are now. Do not keep living in the echoes of the past. 2. Pay attention to your tone. There's a big difference between "this is hard for me" and "this is impossible." Between "I made a mistake" and "I'm a disaster." A small shift in language creates a large shift in perception. 3. Learn to be silent. If what you are about to say doesn't help, doesn't clarify, doesn't build, doesn't encourage, then why say it? Silence is often wiser than any argument. It is the space where your true intention can breathe. Treat your words as sacred. When you speak, let it mean something. When you hear yourself, let it uplift you. Do not keep repeating old phrases just because you're used to them. Declutter the inside. Speak with intention. And if there's nothing worthy of being said, then be silent, because your words are not small. They are a reflection of you. And when you choose to use language consciously, you begin to see yourself in a new way. And so does the world. Lesson 6. Not everyone can understand what you carry inside. Have you experienced this before? You share something that deeply hurts you, and they brush it off. You speak about an idea that lights you up, and they look at you with doubt. You try to explain why you're changing, and all you get back is sarcasm, a smirk, or a shallow critique. How does that feel? Like you're talking to a wall. Not only do they not listen, they throw your words back at you with judgment. You feel tired, drained. You begin to adjust yourself. You re-explain, soften your Taneko's words more carefully, justify. Watch their reactions, but nothing changes. Because the truth, a hard but crucial truth for your peace, is this: not everyone is ready to understand you. Not because you explained it poorly, not because you weren't clear enough, but because they don't have the openness or the inner tools to understand. Trying to get someone to understand something deep inside you when they're unwilling or unable to receive it is like trying to pour the ocean into a bottle. And without realizing it, you're exhausting yourself. Imagine this: you keep throwing yourself at a closed door. You use your voice, your logic, your pain to knock, push, plead for the door to open. But it doesn't. Not because you didn't try hard enough, but because the key isn't in your hand. It's in theirs. And if they choose not to use it, there's nothing more you can do. That's exactly what happens when you try to be understood by someone who does not share your values, your path, or the depth of life you're living. It's like trying to plant seeds on dry, cracked earth where nothing can grow. And that's why, sometimes, the wisest decision is not to try harder, but to be silent. Epictetus put it bluntly: if you want to improve, be prepared to be seen as foolish and naive. It may sound harsh, but it's the truth. He wasn't telling you to hide. He was warning you. On the journey of growth, you will meet people who don't understand, and they will judge. What matters is not getting them to understand. What matters is this: will you keep going even when you are misunderstood? Even when they call you strange? Even when they don't applaud? Even when they laugh? Keep going anyway. The Stoics understood this. Trying to explain yourself to someone who does not want to listen is a form of weakness. Not weakness because you speak up, but because of the need behind that action, the need for external validation. And when that need becomes a habit, you are no longer the master of yourself. You become a servant to others' opinions. For Stoicism, true freedom begins with an inner choice to stop needing others to understand your path. And no, this doesn't mean you must close yourself off. It doesn't mean you cannot share or connect. It means you need wisdom to know when to speak and when to remain silent, to know which battles deserve your energy and which ones only deserve your distance. Sometimes silence is not suppression. It is protection. It is self-care. It is refusing to waste your precious process trying to make someone understand something. You moved beyond long ago. So what do you do when you are misunderstood? What do you do when others don't see the value in the journey you are living? You keep going. You stay loyal to yourself. And if you must choose between being understood and being free, the Stoic always chooses freedom. A piece of advice worth its weight in gold. Stop using your energy to be understood by others. Use that energy to keep building yourself, because while you're busy explaining, others are moving forward, and if you're not mindful, you might fall behind. More than that, when you over-explain, you accidentally open a door for others to interfere in a process you are still trying to shape. And that can contaminate your path. Some things, like seeds quietly growing beneath the surface, cannot be dug up too early just to show the world. If you do, you kill them. So here's what you can do when someone doesn't understand you. Don't force them to. Not everyone needs to understand your pain, your vision, or your growth. Take a deep breath, smile gently, and keep walking. When you feel truly excited about something, pause before you share. Ask yourself, do I truly want to share this, or am I seeking validation? If you are in a deep process of inner change, protect it. Do not expose too much of it to people who aren't yet capable or willing to see it clearly. Sometimes, the best support you can receive is silence. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can say is nothing at all. Because if you constantly have to explain yourself to be accepted, it's likely you're in the wrong place. And remember this, you are not alone. There are others like you walking in silence, with clear eyes, not needing permission to feel different. You will find them, and until you do, don't shrink to fit into a place that was never meant for you. Don't explain yourself just to be understood. Don't dim your light just to be accepted. Not everyone will understand what you carry inside, and that's okay, because what you carry inside was never meant for everyone. It was meant for you. Lesson 7. Speaking may help you calm your mind, but only action truly transforms you. Let me know if this sounds familiar. You're talking to a friend about your next big project. You're excited, full of energy, describing how this time you're doing it differently. This time it's real. In that moment, you feel amazing, as if you've already reached the summit. Just saying it out loud gives you the sensation of success. But here's the harsh truth. You haven't done anything yet. You've only spoken. And the problem is, your brain does not always recognize the difference. Many studies have shown that when you talk about your goals, about what you want to achieve, your brain activates the same system as if you had actually accomplished it. Dopamine endorphins, that sweet chemical satisfaction. That here's the key difference. You haven't done anything yet. You've only talked. Derek Sivers explains, when you share your plans, your brain feels like you've made progress. This relaxes you, slows you down, even holds you back. And yes, there can be a positive side to that, but you must learn to manage it. Why would you keep pushing if you've already received the social reward? Why would you fight for something if you've already been applauded just for thinking about it? Imagine you're climbing a mountain. Every few meters, you stop, climb back down, and return to the village to tell everyone how far you've gone. Do you think that's how you'll reach the summit? Certainly not. The truth is, sometimes we don't need more motivation. We need fewer words. The Stoics understood this clearly. They didn't define themselves by what they said they would do, but by what they actually did. Even when no one was watching. To them, virtue was not something you shouted. It was something you lived. Marcus Aurelius never went around saying, "I will be a great emperor." He simply lived as one. Action, not talk. He didn't need cheap dopamine hits or loud applause to stay the course. He simply was a man who made mistakes, who faced conflict and challenge, and still chose to act. Think about this. If you have to explain something too much before you've truly lived it, it may not be real, at least not as solid as you believe. Here is a difficult truth. The more you talk about what you plan to do, the less you tend to actually do it. Not because talking is inherently bad, but because words can become a way to escape. A temporary comfort like applause before the performance begins, giving you the illusion of success before the work has even started. True motivation does not come from the audience's claps. It comes from deep commitment, from acting without needing to speak. And that has a powerful side effect. It makes you more resilient. When no one is watching, and you continue when no one is applauding, and you still practice, still follow through. You are building something real, not fueled by external expectation, but rooted within yourself. That kind of consistency is not built on approval. It is built on truth. And once it's there, it cannot be stopped. Quiet action also has another underrated advantage. It saves energy. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to explain. You don't need feedback. You simply do. While others are still debating, you're moving. While others are still posting, you're practicing. Want some real advice? Next time you have a plan, don't say a word. Write it down. Act on it. Let it take root. When it's mature enough, if you choose, you can share it. But don't shout while it's still a seed. Because if you speak too much before you act, your idea might wither before it even sprouts. Don't misunderstand me. Talking is not the enemy. Talking can be helpful, even healing. But if you talk more than you act, you are building a fantasy version of yourself, not your true self. And that gap will hurt you. So what can you do? Don't preach motivation if you haven't passed the starting line. Don't post bold quotes if you haven't taken the first step. Don't tell the whole world you're going to change. Just change. Let actions speak. Let consistency show. And let silence protect what is still becoming. Let everything else speak for you. Do more than speak. Direct your energy toward building. rather than embellishing, because speaking might calm you, but only action truly transforms you. Ultimately, life doesn't change because you declare it changed, but because you act, because you persist, because you choose to prove silently what others only dare to say. Eighth, do you know why we have 2 ears but only 1 mouth? Epictetus left us a quote that seems like something from a children's book. Until you realize its true meaning, nature gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth to teach that we should listen more and speak less. Wow, that's pure philosophy, my friend. Sounds like something your grandma would say, right? But it's not cliché. It's a powerful strategy, a path to wisdom, a tool for genuine influence. Because truly listening gives you a strength most people overlook. It helps you see what others miss, details others unintentionally ignore. More importantly, it enables you to choose your words, decisions, and even battles more wisely. Now apply that to your real life. Perhaps you've known someone like this. When you share something important, a thought, worry, or joy, before you finish, they interrupt with their own story. Oh, my story is worse, or that's nothing. I went through this once. It's exhausting. It feels like your story is merely an opening act for their monologue. They aren't genuinely listening. They're just waiting for their turn to talk. The worst part isn't that they're not listening, but deep down you know they learn nothing. They miss nuance, leaving no room for understanding. All they know is to talk about themselves, I, and ultimately, you leave the conversation feeling lonelier than when you began. Do you think a Stoic would act this way? Epictetus, who was a slave before becoming a philosopher, knew exactly what forced listening meant. But he turned that experience into a virtue. He taught his students, don't rush to speak. Don't use words as a shield, but as a tool. He himself sat quietly through long silences as others presented ideas, even those he disagreed with. He knew silence gives you an advantage. It helps you see more and makes you stronger. Marcus Aurelius, as an emperor, could have been the loudest person in Rome, but his writings are filled with questions, doubts, and reflections. His quietness came from listening more than from ego. He sat with scholars, soldiers, slaves, and truly listened not to respond, but to understand. What about you? How many times have you missed something important by speaking too soon? How many times have you interrupted a moment that could teach you something valuable? Listening is not passive. It's a choice, a humility to admit you don't know everything, and wisdom to recognize when silence is best, to let others show you what you cannot see alone. Imagine you're in a room with 20 people. Only one has the answer you need, but you're too busy talking non-stop, filling the room with your voice. So much so that the person never gets a chance to speak. What did you just miss? Now reverse it. You stay silent, observe, ask questions, and truly listen, not just with ears, but with full attention. What happens? You begin noticing what you previously overlooked. You see details, recognize patterns. You make better decisions. Listening is like silent practice. While others showcase themselves, you may not shine outwardly, but you're building inner strength. And when it's time to speak, Your words carry more weight because they come from genuine understanding. And yes, sometimes staying silent is also a strategy. Not everything deserves a response. Not every comment requires feedback. Some people are just looking for an argument. If you engage, you'll be the one losing. Silence is not cowardice. It's control. It's class. So, what can you do with all of this? In your next conversation, listen slightly more than you speak. Don't interrupt. Pause before responding. Ask more questions. Judge less. And above all, appreciate those who truly listen to you. They are rare, very rare. When you become one of them, everything will change. Do you know that people don't remember what you said or how you made them feel? It might sound simple, but is deeply profound. Next time you speak just to speak, remember you have 2 ears and only one mouth. That's not random. It's nature's perfect design. Use it accordingly, because those who truly listen notice what others overlook. They don't need to shout for attention. They only require sensitivity to understand. Now think about this. If you depend too heavily on others' applause, can you really go far? Do you know the biggest danger of sharing everything you do? It's easy to confuse the applause of the crowd with genuine progress. When that happens, you become lost, because if you constantly need others' reactions to continue, you aren't building discipline, you're creating dependency. Steadiness turns into performance. Growth becomes a show. And worst of all, you stop hearing your own voice because all you hear are echoes from outside. Today, everything is broadcasted, posted, and loudly announced. Some people can't move forward without followers, audiences, or likes. But remember, the strongest part within you isn't what you show. It's what you do when no one is watching. Let me tell you a personal story. Years ago, I spent nearly 3 months preparing for a significant change in my life. I studied, trained, planned, and felt ready. But just before starting, I talked about it. I told friends and my social circle that this time was real. I received cheers, congratulations, and encouragement. I welcomed that dopamine rush from applause, feeling incredibly energized. But do you know what happened? Nothing. I didn't start. I became comfortable in that feeling and needed another 3 months to regain momentum. The problem wasn't sharing my plans. It was sharing them for validation. Once I got that validation, my brain thought I'd already achieved something, rewarding itself prematurely. That was a critical lesson. If you rely on external recognition, you'll stop the moment it disappears. Stoics do not live for applause. They live to act according to their values, even if no one understands. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, wrote each night about what he had done wrong, character traits needing improvement, and flaws needing adjustment. He didn't write to show the world, but to grow. He once wrote that true glory is doing deeds worthy of being recorded and shared, and above all, doing them even when no one is watching. When you do meaningful things without boasting, you're planting seeds, strengthening your actions, and shielding them from the hunger for approval. This is harder, but significantly more powerful. Do you know why it's so important to stop sharing everything you do? Because once you share everything, every opinion or comment can sway you off course. Each round of applause might lead you to believe no further effort is necessary. Oversharing leaves you vulnerable to the thoughts of others. Your body and mind are your most valuable tools. If you train and care for them, they become your greatest allies. But if neglected, they become enormous burdens. So, what is the first step you'll take to care for your body and mind? Imagine holding a map in your hands. You study, analyze, and plan the best route. You know exactly where you want to go. But there's one problem: you haven't started walking yet. The truth is, you might possess the most detailed map in the world, but if you don't step away from the starting point, you'll never reach your destination. Knowledge that isn't applied through action is truly useless. You can think and analyze for hours about improving your life, but only actions create change. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Stop arguing about what a good person should be and be one." No matter how thoroughly you plan or discuss, if you don't get up and act, nothing will happen. Ask yourself, how many times have you wanted to start something but got stuck in doubt? It could be a project, an important decision, or a conversation you've intentionally avoided. You tell yourself, "I'll do it tomorrow, I'll wait for more time, or I need to prepare better first." But days go by, and you're still in the same spot. Eventually, you inevitably look around and see others moving forward. They may start with less than you, but they dared to move. Someone starts a company, someone travels, others achieve what you keep postponing. Without realizing it, you begin comparing yourself. Then what? You keep thinking, analyzing, waiting for the perfect moment, believing if you think long enough, someday you'll wake up with absolute certainty. Now is the right time. But the truth is, that moment never comes. While waiting, you're stuck, unmoving, exactly where you've always been. You feel empty, disappointed with yourself. But that doesn't come from what you don't have. It comes from knowing what you could do but haven't yet done. If you truly want daily improvement, act right now. Want a small but powerful tip to break this cycle of procrastination? Try Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. It sounds simple, but is incredibly powerful. When you know what you need to do, but hesitate, count backward in your mind. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 inch and immediately do it before your brain finds any excuses. Try this. Need to send an important message? Start the countdown and press send. It's hard to wake up early, but count to 1 and get up right away. Want to start a new project? Take one small step right now. Another important tip is to break large projects into small, manageable actions. If you need to write a 20-page report, don't worry about the entire thing. Start with the first paragraph. If you want to improve your health, don't stress about weight loss. Just make your next meal healthier. The key point is, even if it's just a small action, you must take action, because in the end, the power is not in thinking about action, but in the action itself. So, will you keep holding the map without walking? Or will you take the first step towards the life you truly want? Everything we've talked about so far has one purpose: to push you to become better every day. But if you truly want to build the life you desire, There's still one final piece missing, a connection that ties everything together. A difference between being stuck and constantly moving forward. Here's the truth that not many people want to hear. You don't need more motivation. You need more discipline. I've said this from the start because motivation, no matter how strong, is only temporary. Today, you may feel unstoppable, but tomorrow you might not want to do anything. If you only act on momentary feelings, your goals will always be beautiful intentions that never come to fruition. Discipline is what differentiates dreaming from achieving. Epictetus clearly said, "Nothing great is ever achieved without effort and discipline." But not everyone thinks and acts as clearly as this. So, what will you do? You will learn to stay silent, move forward in silence, build without witnesses. Yes, it's not easy. Sometimes, not sharing makes you feel lonely, even unfair for not being recognized. But it is in those moments that your character is shaped and true strength is formed. Here's how you can apply this. When you achieve something important, celebrate in silence. If you want, you can share later, but don't turn it into a search for approval. Let the focus stay on the achievement, not the external reaction. When you have a new plan, don't rush to announce it. Start, experiment, and adjust quietly. If one day you decide to talk about it, let it be because the plan has taken root deep within you. When you feel the urge to do something just to impress others, stop and ask yourself, is this for me or for others? Most of the real, profound changes in life will happen without an audience, and that's perfectly fine. You're not here to get applause. You're here to evolve, to become the best version of yourself, even if no one notices. So, let go of the noise. Let go of the ego. Let go of the constant urge to share. Focus on action, on movement, on what remains after the camera turns off and the room becomes empty. Because if you can keep going in silence, you are the true one. Stay with me, because what's to come is not just philosophy, it's pure transformation. These final lessons will truly change you from within. Let's continue forward together. Let's move on to the 10th lesson. Not everyone deserves your trust. Not everything that glitters is gold, and not every smile is sincere. Trust is one of the most powerful gifts you can give, but it's also the hardest thing to regain once broken. When you trust someone, you open a very private door inside yourself. If the person who enters doesn't know how to appreciate what they find, they may leave you worse off than when they arrived. I know you are someone who gives with all your heart. You believe that if you approach with sincerity, others will do the same. But the reality is, not everyone deserves to know what you think. Not everyone deserves to hear how you feel. And, most importantly, not everyone deserves the key to the most vulnerable part of you. Nature understands this perfectly. Take the bamboo as an example. It can spend up to 5 years underground without sending up a single shoot. What do you think it's doing all that time? It's silently building deep, invisible, yet strong roots. Only when those roots are ready does it start to rise. And you, too, should learn to build a solid inner strength before exposing yourself to the outside world. Because if you give your trust to the first person who passes by, They may crush it before it even has a chance to bloom. This is something most of us have experienced. Have you ever opened up to someone who seemed kind, approachable, and shared a difficult moment you were going through? They listened to you, but as soon as you finish speaking, they respond with something like, "Come on, that's nothing. I've been through much worse." Then they begin to tell their own story about their own issues, tragedies, or hardships. And you sit there, feeling the bitterness of being betrayed because your trust wasn't received, but was instead turned into a mirror, no longer a bridge of connection, but a wall. Does this sound familiar? The question is, did you share because you truly trusted that person, or simply because you needed to unload on someone? Sometimes we share too much simply because we don't want to carry our emotions alone. But trusting impulsively can leave a deeper wound than silence. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Epictetus taught his students, "Observe carefully. Before opening your heart, let time prove who has the qualities of discretion, respect, and wisdom. Not because they are cold, but because they understand that some truths should only be shared with those who truly deserve them." Seneca made it very clear. It's safer not to trust than to trust and regret. This is not delusion, but wisdom. Emotions are a safeguard for your peace of mind. This does not mean you should be closed off. It means being selective, building relationships with deep roots, not just appearances. It means saying less and observing more. Marcus Aurelius, the great emperor, once privately recorded his mistakes, progress, and thoughts. He didn't do this for others, but to maintain his inner peace. His words say it all. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. You don't need to prove you're right. You only need to act in accordance with your own truth, even if no one understands. Epictetus taught, "You should act first and only speak when necessary, because when you do the opposite, the ego will precede the purpose." So, what do you do with all of this? First, consider which decisions you're sharing out of habit, impulse, or insecurity. Do you really need to say everything? Or can you keep some things in silence? Second, protect yourself. Not everything your building is ready for public opinion. Some truths are stronger when you don't interrupt them with explanations. Third, make silence your ally. Don't isolate yourself, but carefully choose who you open up to. Sometimes it's enough just for you to know, because, yes, some battles are won without an audience. They are won in your mind, in your persistence, in your ability to remain silent about what you're building until it has deep roots. And if you do it right, one day you won't need to say a word, because the person you have become will speak for itself. We've just talked about the power of perseverance and how silence can become your ally on the path to self-development. Now, let's face another challenge, just as important: the noise from the world around you and within your mind. It's exhausting to live amid noise. There's external noise, constant notifications, loud opinions, endless interruptions. But what about the noise inside? It's the doubts, the comparisons, the pressure to explain everything, to prove every action you take. Do you know how tiring that feels? It feels like you have to explain every step you take, justify every decision, announce every change just to prove you're really moving forward. As if your life is always at maximum volume just to make sure you're not falling behind. The problem is, noise sometimes looks like action, but most of the time, it's just distraction. And eventually, your soul will run out of energy from constantly talking, posting, explaining, and sharing everything. All those things will wear you out and exhaust you. Have you ever been in that situation? You're trying to change something in your life, maybe a relationship, your health, or your mindset. But instead of focusing on the process, you find yourself telling everyone about it. Every small step has to be shared. Every day needs to be validated, as if the process isn't real unless someone witnesses it. But change doesn't need applause. It needs a steady direction. Epictetus said it clearly. Don't explain your philosophy, live it. And here's a quote you should remember deeply. The more you talk, the less you do. The more you explain, the less you progress. The noise becomes the main character, and you're just the spectator of your own transformation. There's a simple yet perfect story that illustrates this. A monk lives on a mountaintop, and every day he silently walks down to the village to fetch water. He never talks about what he does. One day, a young man asked him why he stays silent, why he doesn't share what he knows. The monk replied, "If I need to speak, it means I don't understand it deeply enough." And then he continued walking. Sometimes, noise only appears when there's insecurity. If you're certain, you don't need to declare it. If you're at peace, you don't need to justify it. If you're focused, you don't need to share everything. So, what can you do? First, identify the noise within you. What are you saying just to feel better? What are you sharing impulsively? Learn to differentiate between real communication and emotional noise. Second, turn down the volume. Mute the voices of those who speak but don't add value. Distance yourself from conversations that pull you away from yourself. Not everything deserves a response. Not every comment needs to be corrected. Sometimes the energy you use to speak is the energy you lack to act. Third, enjoy your process in privacy, not to hide, but to protect. Make silence your sacred space, where your transformation doesn't depend on likes, comments, or anyone's approval. Yes, this is hard at first because we are used to narrating every step as if life were a live broadcast. But after a while, you will feel peace. You will feel more focused. You will realize that noise can wear you down. And when you learn to live with less noise, you will see that what truly matters is not the volume, but the direction. Now, we've reached the final point of this journey, the last lesson, the one that gives meaning to everything we've gone through. Be ready to receive a profound truth. 13. If you do it for yourself, you don't need to say anything. Think back to the times when you truly changed in life. Did you announce it? Or did you simply do it quietly? The most important turning points often happen when you act silently, without needing explanations. No announcements, not telling anyone at all. You simply act, and that's when everything changes. Because when something comes from within, it doesn't need anyone's approval. It just needs to be lived. There is a thin line between genuinely sharing what you're going through and speaking just to be recognized. If you don't recognize that line, it can silently take away the strength you're holding inside. Let me tell you something that changed my life. One day, a loved one asked me, "Why haven't you shared anything lately? Why are you so withdrawn?" I answered honestly, "Because this time, I want the change to be mine, just mine." And that gave me great liberation, because I didn't need to convince anyone. I didn't need to prove anything. I only needed to keep my word with myself. That day, I realized when you do something for yourself, you don't need to speak it out because you feel it, you hold it, you live with it, and that is enough. Seneca once wrote, "The true reward of a good action is not talking about it, not receiving applause, but knowing that only you, and only you, took that step." Imagine, if your change depends on someone recognizing it, is it still truly yours? Or are you just renting your possessions to public opinion when something comes from deep within? You won't rush to flaunt it. You won't hang it on the wall or repeat it dozens of times. You will simply live with it. That is the truest freedom you've ever had. So, what can you do right now? First, change in silence, not because you're hiding, but because you're truly committed. Let your motivation come from harmony with yourself, not from being seen by others. Second, let time speak for you. What you are building today will reveal itself in the future. Words can lie, but actions never do. Third, remember that you're not here to impress anyone. You're here to develop yourself. If someone notices that, great. But if not, that's okay too. Because when you do it for yourself, that's enough. This is the conclusion of the series of lessons, and perhaps the most important. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to defend it. You just need to live with it. When you truly do it for yourself, you don't need to say a word. It will manifest and transform you, as well as everything you touch. My friend, before you leave, if this content has touched you, if something has awakened within you through this video, please subscribe and become a member of the channel so we can go deeper together. And don't forget to leave your personal commitment in the comments. What will you start building in silence from today? Or simply write, "I am a Stoic. From today, I will stop talking about it and start living it." That way, I will know who the true Stoic warriors are who have reached the end of this journey. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and like the video so you won't miss what's coming. I also invite you to watch the playlist on the screen full of ideas, stories, and advice to help you navigate life with more wisdom and confidence. Click on it, and let's continue moving forward. See you next time. Stay healthy and continue living with the Stoic quality inside you.